powerful enemies, and they will be looking for me. I don't have anything. Don't do this.
Asteron, sir. That was a civilian.
I'm aware of that.
Hello. Hi, Andy. Great to talk to you again here on the channel.
Hi, Ben. It's good to see you.
Yeah, there's also a very good reason to talk again here because you just announced your new game, Starfated. I will make sure to leave the Steam link below in the description of this video so that everybody can already take a look. Obviously, wishlist, which with what always helps to support, right? And stay up to date with all the news around the game. So maybe as a first question to you, can you explain a bit what Starfated is all about?
Okay. So Starfated is it's a 2D top-down version view of it's a open world action RPG in space where you pilot a starship that's commanded by a ruthless villain, and he'll do anything to survive. So you basically it's the kind of the game loop is you're going to destroy enemies, collect lots of loot, equip your ship. There's hundreds and hundreds of weapons, shields, armor, engine types. There's all kinds of choices for customizing your crew with abilities, and then it's a kind of a exploration type game where you're going to explore space in sort of a free roaming adventure. It's open world, and you are going to encounter lots of NPCs. They're all voice acted. And find quests as you go, find little bits of lore here and there. You can gather intel, interact with the NPCs. Your choices, there's a lot of choices. They're going to matter. They're going to change how the story advances and what happens. You make a lot of decisions that can affect the surroundings. You're going to battle bounty hunters, pirates, major crime syndicate, and even the Union Guard are after you, and any NPC that you pick a fight with. So that's kind of Starfated in a nutshell. I get another thing I should mention is that you're going to be searching for Void Sea artifacts, which are items that give your ship unusual powers. And so your commander, who's a villain, is obsessed with finding these. So you have to, look throughout the galaxy to see if you can locate them. Gain more power to resist enemies that are hunting you.
That sounds already exciting. So there's a lot going on in the game, and also, let's say, a mix of different elements, right? So I think it's, again, You came basically from a visual novel last time with Star Legation, right? And I think this game will also be strongly character-driven, right? So there's the big part on the story, what's going on, basically. But on the other hand, there's also a mix of different game elements, right? Maybe you can go a bit more into the detail. So you mentioned that it's a 2D action exploration space game, if you want, right?
Yes.
What are the gameplay elements? What would you say makes it special, Starfated?
Well, it's unusual because there's a lot of little game mechanics that are kind of unique, but another thing that's kind of unusual, the bigger part, is that you're being hunted rather than. I think I'm kind of taking the traditional ARPG and flipping it around a little bit. Normally, you would go looking for the enemies and try and destroy them. But in this one, they're all looking for you. So you're trying to survive, picking up quests and odd jobs here and there to build up your power. But all the while, the enemies are searching for you. And if you stay in one place for too long, they might find you. And if you anger some people, they might, go on the dark web and report your location because they find out about the bounty and they want to get paid something. And all these enemies will come and find you. So you're kind of on the run, but you're going to have to fight constantly as you move through space. So that's a little bit of the flip side on it. And another thing is you're playing a villain, and this is kind of at first a little bit confusing because you're not actually the villain. You're playing his starship, but the commander it's like a JRPG instead of a Western RPG. in Western RPG, you're basically it's an open slate. Like you invent the character you want to be, you put in whatever backstory you imagine for them, and you act them out however you want. But in a JRPG style, the main character is already established with a personality and a backstory, and that's who this villain is. So the villain, his name is Asteron, and he's an alien. He's a realm, and he is your commander. And as the game progresses, the crew discovers the crew that he just hired discovers that he's an outlaw. And they're kind of trying to protest, to have a mutiny almost. But he's got this powerful artifact that prevents them from stopping him. He actually can stop any of them with this artifact. So they're worried about the threat that he poses, and they're trapped aboard the starship, and he's doing all these bad things, and they don't have a choice. So in a way, you can actually, as a player, you can perform all these evil actions in the game. You could talk with an NPC and decide that you just want to destroy their ship for the scrap metal. And then the crew will protest, and Asteron will say whatever, but you can pretend that it's his fault. It's not you that's doing it. He did it. So you have kind of a moral cushion for all the bad actions that you might perform as an outlaw. So you get to role play a villain in a way in this game. That's what kind of makes it a little more unique.
That's a very interesting take, because there are not so many games out there that let you play the bad guy, let's say, like this, right? So that's a very, very good and very interesting take already for the game, let's say, to start with. About, let's say, if you do something evil in the game, will it have consequences then also over the game on how others behave? You mentioned your crew, but also the NPCs. Is there, let's say, an action consequence that you can experience there?
Yes. So just because he's a villain doesn't mean he can get away with everything. So I've programmed it so that, for instance, if you're near a space station, there's some NPCs flying around, and there's a police officer patrolling. If you attack an NPC within sight range of the police officer, he's going to come after you. But if you wait until you're out of range of the police officer's sight range, you're off in space and you see an NPC, you can get away with it, whatever you want to do. They might fight back, but there's always going to be consequences. And if you decide to destroy the police officer in sight range of the space station commander will shut down access to the station. So you won't be able to access those stores anymore. You might not be able to save your game there anymore. There's consequences to everything that you do. So it's, and other things I can think of, like, let's say there's a cargo ship coming by that's supplying weapons to one of the stores at the space station. You might decide that you want to rob that supply there, so you can, shoot him in space, blow up his ship, take all the stuff he was transporting. But when you go back to the space station, all of that company's weapons that he was transporting are gone. So you disrupted the supply line, but now there's consequences. You can't purchase any more of them, and maybe what you got from his ship wasn't as good as what was on sale in the store. And now there's no more availability of that particular company's weapons. So there's cause and effect for everything that you do.
So you have quite a big logic chain in the end, right? What happens in the world to keep track on what you did in the past, basically, as a bad guy there. If I understood it correctly, the space ship, actually, when it wants to land at a space station, then the space station has like a kind of a state also. If what you did before there and maybe doesn't let you save, or it doesn't sell you items, correct?
Well, yes, you won't be able to access the space station anymore. So there's a space station in every single star system. So far, there might be some star systems that don't have them. And then outside star systems is just deep space. That's like, open travel. There's no space stations out there. So my current plan is that you can only save at a space station. So going out into deep space is kind of scary, because if you die out there, you got to start back at the space station. I will have warp gates where you can, in some more populated systems, where you can jump between systems and you don't have to travel deep space. But deep space is very dangerous. There's asteroids that are not orbiting. They're just, flying randomly. You have all kinds of threats out there, and it's sometimes a distance to travel to get to the next star system. So you don't want to lose access to your space stations necessarily. So you probably don't want to shoot those police officers. You might have to wait a long time before you can, save again somewhere. So then there's I also have other plans like the Void Sea artifacts that I mentioned earlier. They have physics altering, game altering properties, and one of them actually allows you to save your game anywhere you want. So this is, they kind of disrupt the rules that I set. So that's the current design plan.
Yeah, I see you put a lot of thought in the whole world design, let's say, also, and a good mixture out of, innovative game mechanics, but also the whole lore, etc., right, about that the world has its own life in the end, right, that also keeps track on what you did is very nice. The Starfated is part of the Solar Echoes universe, is that correct? And
yes, that's correct. Yeah, I've been developing Solar Echoes for about 15 years in different products. So,
is it connected to your last game, story-wise, to Star Legation?
Well, not exactly. So I began developing the Solar Echoes, concept or the products began back in 2010 when I designed the tabletop role-playing game. And that was designed so that the players could be agents of the Union Guard, which is the law in this universe. So they're the good guys. And as I developed the tabletop RPG over the years, I eventually started to make video games. And Star Legation is my first video game, and that's a visual novel. And what that is it's a prehistory to the what I established in the tabletop game. So it's kind of, there's 7 alien races, and in the history section of the book, in the Solar Echoes book, it talks about what happened to bring all those races into an alliance called the Interstellar Union, the ISU. So the Star Legation is about the people that were involved in making that alliance. So it's kind of like a historical, origin story for the Solar Echoes universe. So the actual story of Starfated follows the novel, not the visual novel, but a novel that I read that's on Amazon called Whispers of the Void Sea. And that is where the story that leads into Starfated kind of, I don't want to give too much away. And you don't need to know that story either. You can jump into Starfated without any knowledge of the Solar Echoes universe at all, and it might be more fun for you to do it that way because there's a lot of discovery. There's lore bits all over the place. But those people that are familiar with Solar Echoes might have a little extra fun because there's little Easter eggs hidden throughout the game that will make reference to certain things. But the events in Whispers of the Void Sea involve the Void Sea artifacts. And Starfated opens with a heist that occurred that Astron was part of, and then he steals the ship of the Black Star Syndicate that he was working with. And that's where the story begins in Starfated, as he's now on the run. He stole an artifact, he stole their ship. They're after him, they posted a bounty for him, and he's trying to survive. So it's a long-winded way to explain that situation.
No, it sounds great that you have such a big universe around the game and, well, as a whole Solar Echoes universe. If people want to find out more about it before Starfated launches, they can find info on your website, I guess. So you have your own development studios, Corefront Studios, and on that website they can find all the information around the lore, etc., and what happened already in the universe, right?
Mm-hmm, that's true.
Because you mentioned a book, tabletop games that happened already, and a visual novel that is also available on Steam. So those are basically the components so far of the Solar Echoes universe, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Already a lot going on there. So let's see where Starfated takes that. I think you're developing the game in Unity, right?
Yes, this is my first time working in Unity. So after I finished the Star Legation, I was using a visual novel maker program for that, and that was me trying to get my feet wet and see if I could program. And that was about a 2.5-year project. I got very involved in it. It's there's like cinematics and all kinds of choices, over 500 choices I think in the game. But I finally, after I finished that, I said to myself, okay, I want to get more serious. I want to try to learn Unity. I downloaded it and I started playing around with it, and what I ended up with was a little tiny game that I'd made where you could fly little starships around and shoot each other. And I showed it to somebody that I know in Poland. I've worked with Natalia Gricka before, and she mentioned this programmer to me. His name is Patrick, and he has been working in C# for a long time, but he'd never used Unity either. So he liked what I did, and he was very excited to try and do some more. And so we started working together, and it's really neat what we've done. And he's built the major architecture of the game, and I've learned to program a little bit myself, and I've worked with somebody else, another programmer in Venice, and he added a few features to the game as well. So that's kind of our team right there. And I should also mention our concept artist. I worked with Natalia first to develop the human ships, but then I found a concept artist in Canada. His name is Carl Duperret-Richer. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he's done some fantastic work on the other alien ships for the different races. So I'm excited to now bring those concepts into the game as 2D art, and Natalia is working on that right now.
So you've got a cool team together for Starfaded and to bring that into life.
Yeah.
Do you think the release date will be still in 2026 or more move into 2027, or whatever it takes?
Yeah, probably late 2027 if we're lucky. There's still a lot to do. I mean, we have a full playable demo that's not going to be released publicly, but I'm using it for play testing. But there's still a large universe to build, and it's I don't want to rush, but I also want to make sure that it comes out within a few years. I don't want this to go on forever. So I'm working on limiting the scope and figuring out everything that we can realistically build. But I have the story all figured out. I have the ending planned. We have about 80% of the game mechanics solid. So most of what needs to be done now is build. And I also need to compose the music for it. I got to, start doing that. I've only have a few compositions for it so far, so definitely need to work on that a lot more.
Yeah, sounds great. Looking forward to play the game, and I would say everybody out there should wishlist the game already right now. That always helps and lets you keep track of all the news that are coming. And you heard already also from, and you mentioned that there's a lot around the Solar Echoes universe already available right now, so people can get involved into the story and the universe today, basically, right? And get up to date with everything that's happening in the Solar Echoes universe. So I wish you best of luck with Starfaded, and thank you so much for this interview today, and hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, me too. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.